Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday night. I know it's getting here pretty late on the East Coast. It's about 20 to 11. And our California members and other West Coast members, I know it's still pretty early for you Saturday night, but I wanted to take this minute just to remind you of our Facebook Live tomorrow, as always, on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be part 2 of a 3-part series on soul integration. If you remember last week when I was promoting this particular 3-part series, I mentioned that many people, oftentimes when they struggle to truly have peace in their lives, what it really scales back to is this idea of elements of soul being misaligned. And what I mean by that is that many times our thinking center, or our brain, our feeling center, or our heart, and our spirit are out of alignment, and they're almost kind of in competition with one another. There are times when you're overthinking decisions and doubting yourself and just being too overly rational or overly analytical. And then there's times where we can just be too emotional, right? Too feeling based. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. I can't do this. And I will always tell you to trust your intuition, but you'll have to admit at times in your life that there have been decisions that you have made solely out of feeling that didn't always work out. And then there's this essence of your spirit. This is where your bliss lies. I don't know how to tell you any more than you are in control of your ultimate happiness. You really are. It's all about how you come to consensus about what happiness is. If you are living your life by someone else's definition of what your happiness should be, then obviously you'll never seek that happiness. You'll never reach it. You'll never get there. And so tomorrow we're going to be talking about this idea of grace. Last week we talked about alignment and how important it was that those 3 elements of our thinking center, our feeling center, and our spirit begin to work in conjunction with one another, become fully integrated, which is what the process of this entire 3-part series is for. We can't do that without living into grace. As the promo says here, grace is the weapon that disarms the dark. Listen to that for a minute. And look at that image, too. It was just the most beautiful image I had ever seen, and I had to take it. It was almost a shame to put words on it. Grace is the weapon that disarms the dark. If there are moments in your life that you feel like you're just sitting in the dark, that you feel like you can't get unstuck, you just feel hopeless, helpless, without purpose, or that you only get so far and then you feel like you fall down, grace is the aspect that you need. And grace is a process in itself, right? Like breathing. Grace is about that inhaling, exhaling, and all that process in between, because grace, I learned once in my own training, the ABCs of grace. Grace is a process of A, awakening. Grace is a process of experiencing bliss, B. And C, grace is a process of creating with compassion. And so one of the things that most people struggle with most is not living into this essence of grace, because they fail to, again, practice that art of allowing, practice that ability of just taking a step back for a moment and realizing that while things are in our control, there are times where we have to step back and allow the divine to show us the magnitude and the power and the presence and the beauty of all that exists around us. There is something bigger, my friends. There is something bigger. And whatever that bigger is fine with me, whatever that is that you believe. But it's like the saying, right, by St. Augustine. What is grace, you ask? I know until you ask me. When you ask me, I do not know. And so if you think about that for a minute, there are these moments where you've experienced grace moments. Intuitively, you know what grace is, but it's hard to express this idea, right? Following grace is far easier to do than to describe it. And grace is this ability to align with the divine. Grace is awakening, right? And truly living in this lovely space we call life and having those aha moments. Grace is about authenticity. It's about truly being you and bringing forth all those pieces of you. Grace is about balance. Grace is about dynamic equilibrium. Grace is about blessings, right? Realizing and counting your blessings every single day. Grace is about bliss, serene happiness, this ecstasy of spiritual love. Grace is about clarity. Trust me, when you live into grace, you will never be more clear. Grace is about connection. It's about truly, truly realizing who is there for you, with you, not against you. And grace is effortless, right? Grace is about flow. Grace is about this amazing sense of freedom and gentleness and happiness. And no, it's hard. People ask me, when I did this thing last year about living into grace, it was my theme last year. They said, tell me more about it. It was so hard to tell people what it was because it's almost like a superpower. And when you do it, you know it because there's this divine radiance about you. There's this strength about you. There's this synergy about you. And as you know, the name of my business, Transcendent Heart, this is where I get it from. Grace is transcendent, right? Harmonizing opposites, this transcendent awareness. It's allowing you to go out without darkness, to know that there is light, that if you have experienced loss, understanding there is gain. If you have gone through and experienced death, you know there is life. If there are things that are taken away from you, you know that presence will occur again. That is what grace is about, no matter how many times you get knocked down, right? As the great Les Brown always said, you better hope you fall on your back because you know what? If you're on your back, you can look up, and if you can look up, you can get up. I love Les Brown. That's the one thing that I always took from him. So grace is universal. It's transformative, and it's amazing. So tune in tomorrow, 1 p.m., my dears, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do a live session. Come prepared to write down notes. Come prepared to be moved. Come prepared to begin to feel and think about how to live into your own grace, how to begin to thrive versus survive. This is Dr. Renee of Transcendent Heart Life Coaching, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Bye-bye.